People who've been on home renovation or remake shows, how's the house holding up? Plumbing and remodeling company I work for did plumbing for an HGTV show about 10 years ago. We did the hookups for the new laundry room. The homeowners picked some fancy Moroccan tile for the floors at some upscale NYC boutique, and the host of the show decided it would look better without grout, which went about as well as you'd expect. Filming wrapped, and we were called back out a few weeks later to replace the fancy tile that immediately chipped and became dangerous with some boring tile. Had to sign NDAs, etc. Who in their right mind decides not to grout tiles? Probably Zalige tile. It's not usually grouted, but also not usually used in heavily trafficked floors. Jesus Christ, they're trafficking floors now? Crime is getting out of control these days. My first gold on what is arguably my worst pun. Who would have thunk it? Thanks, an anonymous Redditor, E2, at risk of doing, thanks to all subsequent awarders, hopefully I've caused some level of happiness to all. Web link. Dad? I build some of the nicest homes on the planet that normal multimillionaires can afford. Their designers all talk them into fragile tile, wallpaper made of grass that falls apart in a soft breeze, unlacquered brass that tarnishes at first touch, uncomfortable chairs and marble countertops that etch with toothpaste, lemons, catsup, you name it. No grout is also a common idea because they don't care that grout is structural and also makes up for tiny imperfections in the materials and substrate, and yes, they are almost all imperfect. Another one picking up steam is painting things high gloss that should not be because they are imperfect surfaces, and high gloss shows everything and cannot be touched up. They will blame the drywall install if it doesn't look like an auto body finish, even after you tell them it won't. Every client, every single one, says they want a low maintenance house. Only the mid-tier designers will give clients what they ask for. The builder, not the designer, gets called back to fix these mistakes. And designers often bring builders their work. So I am relatively unique in that I routinely shoot myself in the foot and tell clients upfront that a material does not meet their request for low maintenance, and I also tell designers when I am headed back to fix their selections. Builders who are perceived as alarmist are not appreciated. You are better off proceeding with bad selections, taking a browbeating when they fail and it's somehow your fault, and then trying to fix the problem 3 times before the homeowner changes the selection entirely. It's the industry standard. Glad you didn't disclose. Lamau. Glad you shared though. Most NDAs have an expiration date. And/or are toothless. Toothless in a legal sense perhaps, but pretty much every single company will refuse to hire/work with you if you're known to break NDAs. In any case, I wouldn't touch a piece of paper that had teeth. My sister's master bedroom got a makeover on a Surprise Your Spouse show. The designer was going for an Arabian Nights romantic vibe, but it ended up pretty weird looking with all the closets hidden behind yards of draped fabric. They took it all down and painted the room a neutral color within months. They also took the ceiling fan out and replaced it with a giant tree branch wired up with twinkling lights. Not too long afterwards, half the lights went out and it was too hot in the room without the fan, so that got put back as well. On the bright side, it didn't cost them anything and was a fun experience, and they got a couple of new furniture pieces out of it, but in the end they didn't keep any of it the same. My husband always mocked them when they take out the ceiling fan. The designer always scoffs, like who would want this useful item? And when the homeowner says something, they all get an area fan, like that's less ugly. People who like ceiling fans, like ceiling fans. There's really nothing that screams romance quite like a big old box fan tipped back on a chair in the corner and sounding like a plane taking off. Also, you have a 2-year-old and the second on the way? And part of the reason you're moving is a desire for more space and privacy? I'll tell you what your home needs: no interior walls and hard, echoic surfaces throughout. Also, those ceiling fans are out. Small portable fans will entertain your toddler children and their precious, tender little curious fingers, for hours. I can't hear them scream over the sound of the fan, and echoic meets slapping. I dare these designers to tell someone in the South they need to take out their ceiling fan. It's not a house, but a local place was on bar rescue a few years back. Overhauled the entire interior. I haven't seen the episode of the actual show, but the bar has softball fields at it. I went up and played softball during one of their test runs. They renamed the place Boulder Lodge. About 9 months later they went back to the old name but kept most of the interior designs and food/menu. It's still running and largely seems better than it was before the rescue. I used to go to a place that was on bar rescue years ago. All they did was remodel the main bar area, change the menu, and pop a new sign/awning on the front of the strip mall. The patio still had the same crafty tables and chairs, and the kitchen remained exactly the same as before. 2/3 of the co-owners sold their shares to the third guy like a month later after some kid died crossing the street in front of the bar. They would show UFC there and have like 200 plus people inside, but the parking lot only held like 30 cars, so people would park on the other side of a busy 6-lane street, 3 lanes each way, 55 miles per hour speed limit. The guy was running across the street drunk to his friend's car at 2 a.m. I mean, did they really have to change much else if they were still getting a 200 plus clientele? More parking, apparently. My complaint about bar rescue is that most of the pubs never end up looking like pubs after they renovate them. They put in these bright LEDs and it makes every place look like a cafeteria. Maybe they just jack up the brightness so it looks better on TV, but I love me a dark pub. Dim lighting and alcohol have worked well together since dim lighting and alcohol were invented. Always make sure you leave the bar with your one-night stands before they turn on the ugly lights at closing time. As the bartender, that's the fun part. Exactly, no need to put every light bulb to the annihilate eyes setting. They did one at a place here in Denver called Zanzibar. They had them change the name to Stars and Stripes Badass Billiards, which is just stupid. They kept most everything, except went right back to the old name. This is moderately hilarious to me because Zanzibar here is a noted strip club. Good old Toronto. Last time I was at a strip club in Toronto, the Brass Rail, I walked in and was pretty sure my cousin was on stage. I immediately called my mother, hey, what is cousin stripper McStripperface up to? Mother, she's in Toronto, going to school or something? She, working? Mother, yeah, she has a job working as a hostess at some bar. Well, that's really your aunt's fault for naming your cousin stripper McStripperface. I like the show, but my problem with it is that it seems like he wants to turn every place into either a nightclub or a Chili's. Dives are dives for a reason. A good dive will never need to be renovated. I know a guy who has run successful bars for years. He said trying to change a dive into a respectable establishment only brings in a crowd for a little while, but runs off the regulars. I live next to a medium-sized city that had a part of it known for decades and decades for its great dive/blue-collar bars. Gentrification happened big time over the past 10 years and they got upscaled, and suddenly a bunch of places that had been around 30 to 40 years were closing within a couple years because no one was interested anymore. One was a great Irish pub that had around since like the 1930s and was turned into some upscale snooty cocktail spot and lasted all of 6 months. My family was on a home renovation show when I was a kid, in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was Changing Rooms or possibly another show by the same cast and producers. It was one of those shows where they do 3 rooms in the house and mine was one of the rooms they decorated. It looked so pretty. They decorated it to look like a fairy woodland with huge tree murals on the walls and a night sky of stars hanging from the ceiling. But it held up really badly. All the murals on the wall peeled off and it looked bad pretty quickly. I had fun shooting the show though, and it was a cool story to tell my friends at school. But did your teapot collection survive? I think about this all the time and still feel awful. Remind me what happened? I seem to remember they made a hanging shelf to display all their teapot collection and it fell and shattered them. This was a terrible design to begin with. Hanging in the middle of the room and one bump would cause everything to fall. I remember an episode where they were specifically instructed that under no circumstances was the beautiful wooden floor to be painted. The neighbors doing the room for some reason couldn't help themselves and were surprised when the owners were upset. Unbelievable. Another one I recall seeing was a lady had asked they can do what they want, but she wanted to keep the fireplace stonework as it was. Well, they didn't and modernized it. She was not happy when they did the reveal. Web link. When she whispered, "I need to leave the room now," I died a little bit inside. Bless her heart. And after she leaves, she still has her mic on so you can hear her crying. Also, it was pretty ugly. Mud brown and white, a color scheme that is almost as lacking in color as black and white, while also being more boring somehow. That poor woman, that room was just so irredeemably ugly, and she and her husband both seemed so sweet. I hope they ended up getting the room of their dreams. Not sure if it's the same show, but I remember one where the lady said any color but brown, and they of course painted in brown. Another one they literally glued straw all over the walls. It was hideous. I remember both of those. I swear the designers were competing for the worst designs. There was one where they turned a room into a beach scene and put sand in, I think, the living room as the floor. It looked like it would be a nightmare to deal with. Hilda did the grass. And she did a mural of her face once too. That was so awkward. Did this air on TV? Yes. The old Trading Spaces was pretty memorable for not faking reactions. If one of the contestants, or whatever, didn't like a makeover, they wouldn't try to edit around it or make them act like they did. It wasn't just the designs that are unbearable, but seeing some of the awful reactions are just as painful. I actually can't watch. Oh man. Her crying being caught on mic outside of camera. Lord Jesus. As a former Mason, I had to go look up what the before was. They could have done plenty to leave it as it was and tie it in with the new design. Web link. I would 100% believe it if you told me the producers ordered those instructions to be deliberately broken, just to generate drama for the cameras. My family was on this show. We were told by producers this is exactly what they do sometimes. Friends were on a show a few years ago. It was super intense, 3 weeks of filming, and the redesign looked great on camera. In reality, it was literally things stuck together with staples and tape. After the show, my friend took 2 weeks off work to rebuild everything properly. In reality, it was literally things stuck together with staples and tape. Phil Swift rises from the shadows. Should have used flex tape, a faint voice in the distance echoes. Or rather, flex glue. Or hell, why not both? Just build the whole house from Flex Seal sheets held together by flex glue. What kind of work was done that they had to redo? Kitchen cabinets held together with tacks and tape? Door frames? How bad was it? Like, the curtains were stapled to the wall, so they had to buy curtain rods and do it properly. The crew ran out of time, so only half the wall was painted, the other half was off camera. The designer wanted square chairs that could be used as tables, but in reality they were empty cardboard boxes wrapped in fabric. My friend liked the idea, so asked a real carpenter to make real ones. Did the studio pay for the rebuild? Because F me, I'd never let them get away with that kind of workmanship given what they're selling the show as. My friends received a little cash from the show, but I think they spent that and more to fix it. They loved the redesign, so for them it was a fun experience and they got a nicely designed condo out of it. As long as they don't ruin anything, doesn't seem that bad. It would suck if they tore down the old decors and put up cardboard with staples. Remember Extreme Makeover? A show where they build or hugely remake a home for a needy person/owner? They did one here in my town, won't say for privacy, and my brother, a builder, was approached to help build a home in the dead of winter. Brothers couldn't help but our friends, the neighbors to the home, volunteered, and the home was completed in 1 week. In heavy rain and cold, they built it, and now the home has any number of problems too. The owner went back on Extreme Makeover to fix everything, and was told, "You got this for free, fix it yourself." Didn't that makeover ended up effing with the property tax? I think I heard something about a lot of those homes ended up going to foreclosure. Just passed that home last week, and judging how pretty it is, I'm sure their taxes went through the roof. I read that Extreme Makeover also wrote into the deal families couldn't sell for a few years, and that some homes got caught up in divorce settlements. That Extreme Makeover also wrote into the deal families couldn't sell for a few years, and that some homes got caught up in divorce settlements. I get why they'd have the homeowner sign an agreement not to sell for X years, but in a situation like a divorce or death, I wonder if a judge can overrule that agreement? Most likely, yes. A court will not enforce a contract if it is against public policy, and so if the contract prevented a divorce from occurring, particularly safely, the court would declare it unenforceable. I swore I read somewhere that another problem with the show is the new houses would routinely be worth $300,000, $400,000 plus, and yeah, they don't have a mortgage to pay on them, but they still have to pay, now inflated, taxes. Right, and I heard some of the contestants try to sue the show for not explaining/warning them of that inflation. There was one done in my city, and it's really strange to see it. It's in a neighborhood of modest 1,000 square foot homes on modest lots, and they converted the regular modest home into a McMansion. It's huge, it towers over the other homes. It looks nothing like the original house that was there, nor the others in the area. It also takes up every inch of the lot now, so it looks like it was shoehorned in as a joke. The extreme makeover house that I know was worth 3 to 4 times any other house in the neighborhood and was at least twice as big. I think there was something like 5 kids in the family. The owners couldn't afford the upkeep and taxes and only managed to sell because a nearby church/nonprofit bought to house volunteers/offices. Sounds like exactly what you would expect from a bunch of people who came to work for free. Reminds of that time the residents of Springfield rebuilt Flanders's house. We ran out of floorboards, so we just painted the dirt. Pretty clever. I wouldn't take it down if I were you. It's a load-bearing poster. Yeah. You ever try to lift a toilet upstairs, Ned? Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.